Hi, I'm Tom Lannon from Ridge PBS, and today we're doing something a little different. We have a presentation from a friend of the station, Dr. Robert Jordan, who's a professor of anatomy emeritus at St. George's University in Grenada. And as a result of producing the documentary 1 week in October, we visited Grenada, and while there, Dr. Jordan shared this presentation that I think you'll find interesting, that he often shares with students at the medical school there in Grenada. So Dr. Jordan, I just thank you for doing this, and I'm going to let you take it away to share this presentation, and I look forward to learning more about that 1 week in October that happened in 1983, 40 years ago.
This thing is called Anonymous Adventures in Grenada, but that's what I usually talk about when I have 2 hours or 3 hours. So right now is just going to be the Grenada intervention. We call it invasion, or rescue mission. I prefer intervention, and this is basically my recollections via slides and photographs of what happened basically the week of October 25th in Grenada, when we were invaded by or intervened by U.S. and CARICOM forces to prevent the spread of and continuation of a socialist/communist government that had taken over on the 19th. And if anybody in the audience wants to read more about it, this is a great book, Urgent Fury: The Battle for Grenada by Major Mark Atkins. He's a British guy that's stationed in Barbados and was part of the forces, CARICOM force that came over. And it's a great reference book for the whole action. And if anybody wants to write, email me, I can send them a copy of this thing, which I wrote way back when with colleagues about my personal involvement. And basically, it's a written account of what actually occurs and what you see on these slides. And I think most of you know where Grenada is. They're the last island, the southernmost island in the Caribbean, and mountainous. All the action that I'm involved with took place here on the southwest part of the island, where the medical school with its 2 campuses is located. And this is actually a picture of it that shows you that it is real. And there is the international airport. This is Grenada. There's St. George's, the capital of Grenada. And here is St. George's University as it was a couple of years ago. Here, and then over there, if you can see, is our second campus, our Grand Anse campus, on this beautiful Grand Anse beach. All the action I'll show in these next couple of slides took place in this general area during the intervention. Just one picture of our campus over Grand Anse when it was functional. It's now not functional because everything that was here, we've moved to our True Blue campus on the other part of the island. And there again is the Grand Anse campus where things took place in '83. We taught here and we taught over at Grand Anse simultaneously during that period of time. And just to show you what it looked like then in '83, this, by the way, is an A7 that was involved in the war, the intervention. And you can see it's very stark. The airport is being built. It wasn't finished. They were paving the runway, as you see here, Cubans and the Grenadians. And way up there is our campus. And you see that actually our campus, there it is. That was what we looked like in '83. 5 dormitories and a lecture hall and a library and nothing else. And this is where we lectured, and we taught, where I taught anatomy by lecture. And then way over on the other side was the gross anatomy laboratory on the Grand Anse campus. This slide, believe it or not, is a YouTube picture, a satellite picture, a YouTube picture about 5 days prior to the intervention. It shows you what it looks like. I show it only because it shows the campus very nicely up here. You see, we're actually over on part of the runway. Once we finished the intervention in '84, we had to move our campus about 500 yards to the right on this peninsula here. And I also show it because when I lived in Grenada and taught in Grenada, my little house is right down at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that, but right there, that little spot is where I lived during the intervention. So walking the runway every day to lecture, walking runway back, and then walking all the way over to Grand Anse was a daily chore. Well, 3 days a week for me in teaching. A little better shot. Here you see we've moved our campus from the runway. This is at 85. Here's the campus. We moved everything we had over there over here. And way down there at the end of the arrow is where I lived. And I show that only because this is what we passed every day. Cubans and Grenadians working on the runway, finishing it up. No problems. Interaction was minimal, but friendly. And we had no problem before the action on October 25th, 1983. This is a view, and in 83, in those days, living and teaching was a bit different than it is nowadays. We were much more student friendlier, and they were friendlier with us. This is a view from my balcony in that house. And this is a typical weekend party with my chair at the time, Dr. Christensen over here on the right, and students. There I am, a very young guy. And these are the students, and we have these sort of interactions all the time. Nowadays, in today's society, no one does anything like this. But that gives you the idea of the comfort and the friendliness we had as a student and faculty. During my time there, remember, this was a former British colony, Grenada. It got its independence in 1984. This is the first prime minister, Sir Eric Gary, a lawyer and basically a good guy, but to the Grenadians, not that good because he was a sort of a hoodlum. He had a big a big gang of people called the Mongoose Gang, who would take care of people that did not like him or his government. And in fact, ended up killing the father of this fellow, Maurice Bishop, who took over the government in a bloodless coup in 1979. So from 74 to 79, we had a socialist government. We had a regular government. In 79 to 83, we had a socialist government. And you can see these were the signs all over the place. We got along well with Maurice and the socialist government. This is a graduation. There's Dr. Bourne, our vice chancellor, our founder, Dr. Monica, and there's, of course, Maurice and one of his faculty members or his staff members. During that time, Grenada, because it was basically shunned by U.S. and other nations because of the socialist leanings, became very, very socialist and almost communist. In fact, part of the problem with Maurice was that he was a midline socialist, and the others were die-in-the-wool communists, and that eventually ended to his demise. He was on the 19th of October lined up, taken from house arrest, lined up against this wall in the fort, and he and 7 others were machine gunned to death. And that started the downfall of this government, and provided the nidus for the intervention on the 25th, 6 days later. And of course, this is just copies of my diary at the time. You see on the 19th, I was given an examination, and there we see Bishop executed. And then we went on a shoot-on-sight curfew for 4 days. Later on, 24th, 25th, we released from the curfew of the 24th, Monday. And then all hell broke loose when on the 25th, when we were actually invaded by Rangers dropping into Point Salines. Let me just show a picture, an old picture. Basically, on the next few slides, show you what happened here at the airport. Over there is the Grand Anse campus. Grand Anse is the True Blue campus. Over here is Grand Anse. And way back there is a piece of Grenada called Lancipede, where we had some 200 students in private homes living in various homes in this area. Unbeknownst to us, we didn't know what was going to happen, but the military had planned the operation very quickly and with plenty of errors. But the idea was for a number of C-130s to bring in some 600 paratroopers, Rangers, to drop in and parachute onto the runway. There's the runway. There's our campus at True Blue, to rescue the students and then go on our business. This picture, by the way, is taken from the book Urgent Fury, which again I find is a Bible for me for this area. We had no idea this was going to happen, but that's what they thought. And at the time, they did not know there was another campus over here at Grand Anse. This picture is from that book, and this shows the actual drop, the parachute drop, morning of the 25th, about 7 o'clock in the morning. Some 600 parachuters dropped in some 13 aircraft, and quickly took control of the airport and released the students at True Blue. And this is pictures of them leaving the campus at True Blue, passing through the soldiers at the airport to board planes the next day to be flown to the States. About 180, 190 students came from True Blue and then boarded these 130s and the C-141. This happens to be my professor of anatomy, Dr. Boutros, and his wife getting on board. And there is Mr. Moore. He was one of the embassy guys who helped set up the evacuation. And there they go, boarding that 141, and there's a picture from my house of it taken off. Now, the rest of us, we were at True Blue, at Grand Anse. There's our campus, and we had no idea that that happened. We were in a safe house above the campus, about a mile away. This is the True Blue campus, and we were a house above there. And there's that same area. There's the food fair at Grand Anse. Back in here is what will become the Radisson Hotel. And this is the house that Dr. Rao and 30 students were in, myself, were watching the action that morning of the 25th. A better shot, again, we're up there watching all the action, planes, helicopters, it was unbelievable. They're students, all these guys now are physicians, and many of them will be back in Grenada on the 40th in a couple of weeks to relive part of that. And there again is the dog I was talking about earlier. Dog. There's a student and her dog. That's Brandy. Brandy was was very pregnant at that time. Brandy, the dog, and she and I and another person then were part of the group that watched the rescue. Again, another shot of the action. There's Mark McCon and Toby Burchin on a rooftop watching the action. We just sat there like it was a TV show watching planes go by. It became real for me as the anatomist and as an ex-military buff, as an ex-Air Force guy, to watch this. I took this picture by chance. What it shows, and I found out later, I didn't know at the time, was a helicopter. Right there, that splash is a Cobra that had been providing protection for another helicopter shot down in a rescue mission of the Vice Chancellor up here, or the Governor General. Took that shot. There's a helicopter that had just been shot down by anti-aircraft gun at the fort. And another helicopter, the C-146, 146, had rescued the crew of another Cobra that was shot down in here. So here for the group, I'm watching all the action. When I saw that, and I knew that was a Cobra, a gunship, I watched it crash after being shot down, then I knew the action was real. And this is another shot from the. I'm over here on this side of the island. Another individual on the other side of St. George's took the picture as that Cobra almost crashed into the sea from that shot, from that angle. And that's the gun that actually brought it down, sitting on Fort Rupert at the time. So the plan then, we found out later, was for us in Grand Anse to be rescued, not by truck, but by helicopter. Admiral Schwarzkopf was on the ship. He said he looked out his binoculars and saw the beach. He said, why bring trucks to bring this? Because we got a lot of Cubans and a lot of PRA in this area down here between here and the airport. Why not just bring some helicopters in? So we brought in, I think, 9 or 10 C-46 helicopters. Some Marines brought Rangers in. They formed a ring around the campus to protect the campus where we're at. And then 4 of these C-53s came in to pick up the students on the beach at Grand Anse. So Dr. Rao and I were up here We quickly got in and moved down the road and drove in to see what was happening because we had no idea. And that's a picture of what it looked like at the time. That's Carifta cottages. These were all PRA and Cuban military. This was the old police barracks then. And over here is the campus. And that building there is the growth lab where I spent some time during the actual evacuation of the students. So we drove down here, drove in, and we're told there's going to be a rescue mission. That's the truck we actually took and brought our students from the Dr. Rouse house to the campus. This is taken much later after the fact, but there's the truck, and that's Dr. Rouse's car back there safely hidden. We drove in and went in, dropped our students off here at this first dorm, and helicopters were going to be coming in on this beach to pick up them. We didn't know that, but my dog and the demonstrator and I then ran this route to my office here in Grand Anse in the growth lab. And at the same, we're running right over there is where the first bomb hit. And then later on, these two homes down here were bombed, breaking all the windows here. And there's that bus and the car. Again, the idea being bring the helicopters into Grand Anse, and there we are right there. This is Grand Anse campus. Bring up a helicopter all the way back there to the airport and then get them out of here. There's True Blue and our Grand Anse campus. Those are the two campuses we had at the time of the intervention. And that was where I lived, my growth lab on the Grand Anse campus. While I'm in the growth lab hiding in the cadaver storage area, as a matter of fact, my dogs were on the bottom. The demonstrator and I were on a shelf along with cadavers, waiting for all this to happen. This is what all happened, but I never saw any of it. I heard it, didn't see it. 53s came in, and it was the Rangers that formed that periphery around the dorms. They moved out through the dorms. They moved along and there's the Rangers out guarding their way. Ranger, passes Ranger, ran the beach all the way down to that last helicopter, that C-53 down there, to board that last helicopter, this group. And there we are going past the seawall at the campus. The gunner there has come out. There's one of the Rangers. The gunner comes out, and they were providing cover for us, for the students, while they ran the beach to get on that helicopter. That's a view from inside the helicopter taken by, again, one of our students, Tom Gessinger. 60 students were in that C-53 being ferried from the Grand Anse Beach to the airport. And that's the view at the back of the helicopter. There's the dome. That's the Radisson Hotel, now Radisson. There's the beach that they just left, and the barrel of a rifle over here. And this is one of the helicopters landing at the airport. And then there's another picture of the helicopter landing, and there's our students at the airport being addressed by Colonel Ralph Hagler, who is going to be our speaker, as a matter of fact, at our 40th anniversary celebration in 2 weeks down in Grenada on the 25th. And there's, I mean, I know all these people, but some are not with us unfortunately anymore. Dr. Brown died a couple of years ago. Our business manager died a couple of years. Anyway, there's Ralph talking to the students. This fellow, by the way, was the guy that actually told the Army that the Grand Anse campus existed. He's a ex-Army guy. He was our student, and he managed to tell the Army that we had another campus and to go rescue us. These are our students. I mean, you mentioned Dr. Rao. There's Dr. Rao at the head of the line. He was part of the group. In that group, there was a hair lifted there, and there's his two sons, Raju and Rajneesh, getting ready to be, get their passports checked at the airport. And then the fellow I mentioned before, Jim Griffey, he's the Army guy. He had a ride in the Jeep. He later got a medal about a year later, 2 years later, from the Army, the highest the highest civilian medal that the military can give for his duties there in Grenada during that airlift. And students who had just been airlifted, waiting for their ride, their 141 to arrive. They're waiting in the grass. John Carmack holding up the American flag, and again, very happy faces. And some of these guys went out on 131s, like this guy, to Barbados and then to the States, others not. So that was the airlift for Great Ants. Meantime, I'm back here, and I left after everything was quiet. I walked out of the dorm here, out of the gross lab, through the dorm, checking for blood, no nothing, nobody. There was a helicopter down right there that managed to hit a coconut tree and it was crash landed. Walked through it, no blood, some bullet holes. But then my demonstrator, my dog, and I wanted to go in his first his first room over here of the Spice Island Inn. And we were called down to the end by some owners, said, hey, walk down here. We're down in this place. So I spent that night in the another cold room of that hotel, in the kitchen of that hotel. That night, Spectre, the gunship, that's the 130 gunship I'd mentioned to you earlier, made a visit to that area. He was not looking for us, but was looking for the helicopter that has been downed. That's the C-140, the C-46 that hit that coconut tree and crash landed. These guys were all good. Nobody, no blood, no nothing. But that gunship was trying to lock it down and knock it out of action so that the PRA and the Cubans would not get any information from that helicopter, or any information or guns or anything. And that is the first room, the first set of rooms on the campus, on the Spice Island Inn, that I wanted to stay in initially, but didn't, because the people down the hall, 100 yards away, called me down to stay in the cold room. That was hit by Spectre, and that was what is left of it that morning as I walked out seeing this. That's the crew of Spectre. I've become close friends with the gunner, and that's Walter right there. He's holding that 105 gun. These guys were firing these 40 millimeters and then 20 millimeters at that helicopter, trying to put it out of action, but didn't realize they were hitting our area down near the cold room, where we had lots of propane tanks, and I was worried all night about being hit, but they missed us. I did talk over on another Zoom call later on, showing Walter that he's holding the 40 millimeters, that I just picked this shell up out of the wall of my room above the camp from the Grand Ants dorms. And I was asking him, is this one of the shots that he fired at me? He said, no, this is a part of the anti-aircraft fire from the fort. And this shell was one of the ones shot at that helicopter I mentioned being shot down. But because the helicopter was between the fort at Fort Rupert and the dorms, this guy traveled all the way over that water, hit the dorm above my room, and embedded itself in a wall, which I picked up after the fact, a couple of days after the fact. And that's just the helicopter being dismissed. Being chopped up about 2 weeks later, being carted off by these Blackhawks. So that's what it looked like. That's what the dorm looked like. That's my room, and the dorm, that shell was buried in that wall right there in the elevator shaft, right, of the stairwell shaft. And all that is from the firing and from the shrapnel caused by Spectre trying to put out this helicopter, knock this helicopter down. Just more damage on the campus, bullet holes here and there. One of the demonstrators showing some holes in the chancellor's window. More damage. And this here is the rooms that we found later on had been actually looted after I found out the next weekend. And just a couple more pictures of the dorms. That afternoon, this is the afternoon of the 26th, our vice chancellor, Dr. Bourne, came and walked the beach. I showed him the helicopter. And then from there, we left the campus. Here's the campus, a picture of the dorms. About 2 weeks after the intervention, these are the two houses that were hit by Spectre during the evacuation of the students. They're bombed out. These are when they were bombed, they blew out the windows in my gross slab over here. So we left here, went to Lansapine, which is way back up there, just to give you an idea. And Oh, that's an old picture of me. That's Brandy, the dog. With you can see she's very pregnant at the time. She had 9 puppies about 2 weeks later. That was the morning of the 27th, 28th, Friday. We're getting ready to be evacuated from Lancipede. Remember, we had 200 students in safe houses out there, and this is the evacuation Friday morning from Lancipede. The Rangers came out. They formed a nice ring around this area. This is Campeche Hill. You probably saw that when you were visiting out that way when you're visiting. And there's Brandy looking, resting under the shade of the Jeep. That's the 180 students we got from Lancipede waiting their helicopter ride to the airport to be then picked up and taken off from there to the USA. These are Rangers here. These are Hitler-like helmets. These are 82nd Airborne guys in their regular helmets. And these are medical students, the last of the 600 to be evacuated. And there's one of our rescue helicopters, a Black Hawk. This is the last one. I was being signaled to get on it, and with my dog, which I got on it, and this guy saying he had room for one more. This young lady from the embassy wanted to go on and ride as well, but there was no room, so we then took off and flew. There's pictures from inside the Black Hawk. There's Brandy flying over True Blue Point. There's True Blue Point going to the campus. This gunner was crazy. He just opened fire down here for no reason. This is a road into the campus, into the airport. There was nothing down here, but he just wanted to clean his machine gun out, I guess, not 50 caliber. Very interesting time. And that's the campus then as we flew into it. And that was the ground as we landed, showing all the Army, the Rangers, and on the 82nd Airborne there. Our kids got off, and they boarded 141, and this is them landing up in, I think, in Fort Bragg. And they then went, and later on, well, I didn't know, but they were in the White House, met the president and all that good stuff. I went home. I took got a hitched a ride on this truck, went to my place, this home, this is the pictures of the place, and found 25 Bajan soldiers who had invaded my house, but I don't mind. This is their supplies. That's my kitchen. That's my bedroom. All I knew is that I was tired. I crawled in there and slept for about a day. When I woke up the next morning, all these guys were gone. And over the next few weeks, I was host to a number of Army guys come out and put their stuff on the gear and ride and drop down to the beach to go swimming and so forth. Just a few pictures at the very end. This is where I'll end right now because I think I'm going over time. Again, you saw this as I'm getting ready to board that helicopter. This is our Chancellor, Dr. Modica, and then this Dr. Rao you saw earlier. And I never got one of those shirts, darn it, but they had these shirts. This is about 84 after we got back. And we had a nice service. These two of the fellows that were killed in the first action, Sergeant Captain Epps, Captain Ritz, and Sergeant Epps, who killed on the True Blue Point. And that's about it. Tons of things that I could say more, but I'll leave it at that because that is the essence of the first week. We've had visitors come down from these crew here are all friends and acquaintances and relatives of 4 Army guys killed in a Jeep ambush the first day of the intervention. They came down later on to lay a wreath out there and gave us shirts to memorize that group. This fellow, Harry Shaw, was a friendly fire victim, Army guy. He was shot by A7 by mistake. He and another guy had lost their legs at that time. I really choke up when I see this guy.
Yeah.
He died 2 years ago of COVID, unfortunately. And these are veterans. And this is where he was shot at. This house was not there, but this is the foundation of the shot. He wanted to come back to Grenada when we had our last large event 5 years ago in 2018. So he wanted, and we drove around, and using his coordinates and his memory, I found this place out in Fuentes above the drive-in theater, and that's where He met the family that lived there, and he adopted them. Anyway,
Wow. Well, Bob,
I'll leave it there.
I just can't thank you enough for sharing this. I know it was a lot of work to put it together, and when I saw it, I just wanted to share it with our viewers. I want to remind people that this is sort of an extra video that we've produced as part of what we're doing to support the film 1 Week in October, which covers not only the Grenada invasion, but also intervention, but also the events in Lebanon that happened that very same week, where many American soldiers lost their lives. Thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you, and for those of you who are lucky enough to be in Grenada for the reunion and the memorial. You know, we're so glad you're able to do that. So, Dr. Jordan, once again, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you.